Hello and welcome. I'm a little later today, same time for you, but recording this. It's a local election day in this area here today, so there's been quite a bit of activity in the neighbouring places, sounds, and I took the opportunity this morning of continuing with my deep cleaning, spring cleaning, autumn cleaning. The Buddha said the householder's life is a cluttered one, and isn't it indeed? I'm in this very simple kuti. Even so, one has the odd thing, like a towel on the floor for a mat when you come in with wet feet, or a stool or a chair for visitors, or a table. It doesn't take long before one collects things that need looking after, caring for. They're offered to me, after all, given to me out of the generosity of your hearts and others locally. This morning my fan required cleaning, as it often does, which I managed to create a domestic disaster out of. It's a cheapish, relatively inexpensive thing, but it collects a lot of atmospheric water, and black dirt and grime builds up. So at least every week really, but at least certainly every 2 weeks, you need to dismantle it and take it to pieces. And I broke it, but Gamani, the tuk-tuk man who brings me back from Pindapata some mornings and does other things for me to help out, was able to take me to get the necessary parts to fix it again. So I too have had a cluttered domestic morning, but of course by no means that of the true householder's life, which I have myself experienced in the past also. It's just more readily noticeable when things don't go your way in this crucible, focused environment of practice. Something slightly out of routine. And that is no bad thing. This is additional practice. It is giving us that opportunity to exercise equanimity, one of the 4 Brahma Viharas. And that is what I'm going to talk about now, perhaps in relation to this first comment. Thank you for your videos. I always look forward to them. Thank you. I don't normally read that bit out. That was but I appreciate those kind words of encouragement. Here's the bit I was looking for. I was wondering, what does your metta practice look like? Do you chant the Kadaniya Metta Sutta? Do you do specific metta meditation? So 3 questions really. What does my metta practice look like? It looks like this. My metta practice is, as all practitioners' metta practice should be, in relation to other beings, in this case yourselves and any other creatures, other beings I may come across in nature. Loving kindness, and treating others as you'd like to be treated yourself. Metta practice, however, and especially in the West, is very much a way of maybe either warming up or warming down from meditation by sitting and reflecting on those near to you, those far away, those you like, those you don't like, and perhaps in a way radiating thoughts of loving kindness, meditating or radiating those thoughts of loving kindness to all. And this is inducing those thoughts of loving kindness in your mind by way of an auto-suggestive mechanics. Personally, that you will go on to ask, do I have a specific meditation? I don't, as a practice, sit in the lotus position radiating metta to all and sundry, those I like, those I dislike, those that are near and those that are far. You ask also, do I chant the Karaniya Metta Sutta? And yes, I do, every third day in my morning chanting live here on YouTube, if you would like to join me, in the Pali language. If you go back and you search on this channel, there are also many occasions where I chant it in both the Pali and English, or just English. So yes, you'll see evidence that I do, and in that Karaniya Metta Sutta, it is explained in the words of the Buddha from the suttas, so in that chanting, that we are reflecting on, thinking of those we like, those we don't like, those we're neutral about, people near, people far, all beings fair, all beings far, down in the depths of the sea and out into the universe, in other realms, and covering all beings with your metta and loving kindness. But I tend to think of that as a figuratively speaking exercise, reminding ourselves that starting with ourselves, loving kindness for ourselves, we think of all people in the same way. Now, it might seem hard at first to think that metta, loving kindness, is appropriate for your enemies. You may have to try and first forgive them for the wrongdoings they may have done towards you. Well, the mechanics of that auto-suggestion that you're developing in your mind through recitation by rote, this list of whom you're radiating metta to, may work eventually, and it may give you a feeling of joy yourself and rapture in your meditation. But I tend to think of it as more of a practical exercise of being able to face all and sundry with an attitude of loving kindness. Now, the monks I meet here in Sri Lanka and the monks I meet in Thailand never cease to surprise me in how they come across so calmly, peacefully, with a soft and kind metta voice, loving kindness kind of voice. Whatever the conversation you're having, it seems that they have unlimited amounts of metta for you. So much unlike me. I've had to really work hard on metta. So do I have a metta practice? Yes, but it's not in my specific as part of my meditation. My meditation is to develop holistically all of these Brahma Viharas by actually dealing with my mind, purifying my mind, developing wholesome mind qualities and reducing unwholesome mind qualities through samadhi, and through my daily activities to be able to do that through mindfulness, right sati, samasati and samasamadhi. What does it look like? Well, here I'm with much metta, loving kindness, sharing with you not just the Dharma, but my experiences of practicing in this form as a Buddhist monk, the Dharma in my day-to-day life. That is offered to you with loving kindness. But I said I had to work on it. When I was in India, I'd been there for, I think, getting on for a couple of years, 2 years, maybe a bit over 2 years. I was kind of getting a little bit lacking in metta, I would say. It was very busy, the temple I was staying in at the time. It was very hustle bustle everywhere. I was having to go to lunch invitations each and every day, lots of ceremonies going on. And my patience, kanti in the Pali word, was getting a little bit thin on the ground. And thinking of those lovely monks here in Sri Lanka that I hear, and the lovely monks that I hear in Thailand speaking with such a way of speaking with metta, as if nothing could change their mood, I noticed in myself a lack, and I developed my metta through my dealing with people face to face, practicing with animals in nature. You can see many videos at one point in this time since these have been being recorded, of me just talking to cows. There was a purpose behind that. I found it very easy to develop relationships with these beautiful cows in India that weren't always that friendly, but most of the time were. And I could just practice with them compassion and loving kindness, metta and karuna, metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion. And the way we can practice to develop metta, if you're like me, and it's a struggle, if you're naturally not full of loving kindness, looking at the world through pink, rose-tinted pink glasses, love and peace, joy to everybody, if that isn't natural, one has to try and develop it as a quality. And all of these 4 Brahma Viharas are something that we develop as qualities, as opposed to practices. The practice is what we do to develop those qualities. And my practice in this case was to see each situation when an angry driver was hooting their horn at me because I was taking too long to cross the road, or if someone aggressively came up to me and said, "Who are you? What are you? Where are you going? What country are you from?" like this. I had to think, well, firstly, we don't react and say, "Excuse me, why are you speaking to me like that? Why are you treating me like that?" And that non-reaction, but giving yourself time to think, is equanimity, upekkha, the 4th of the 4 Brahma Viharas. But it doesn't always come naturally either. So the first key in this process to develop both those qualities is a way of reverse engineering the process. And this you can do through compassion. And karuna, compassion, is far more easy to manipulate, to make, to develop, than it is to manipulate and make metta. If you're not naturally full of loving kindness, and I'm certainly wasn't naturally full of loving kindness, I had to try and make it happen, make myself feel metta towards all beings. And I've done this through the practice, the development of compassion, by really seeing the obstacles in relationships, or our confrontations even, or our experiences and interactions with any beings, whether it be human or an animal, something that might want to bite you, sting you. They had some very fierce ants that I was struggling with where I was staying for a long time in India, that one bite at first, I had a very bad reaction, had to go to the hospital, swelling like this. They give you some pills and eventually you develop a kind of immunity to it. But at first it's very painful, and I had great difficulty in having metta towards such beings. But with compassion, I could understand that it's their place I'm sitting in. They came first. I'm the stranger. I'm getting in their way. They don't know what to do. They're ignorant. They can only, out of fear, defend themselves. So recognizing that, have compassion. And this is the same for people. Some people may behave towards you unkindly. It isn't necessarily out of 100% intent, but through a lack of knowing really what to do or how to be with a stranger in their midst, or even someone who knows you well, who's just always unkind to you. It can be seen as happening through ignorance. And for that, you can feel a little bit sorry for them. Not in a conceited way, in a kind way. And that is compassion, having compassion for them, karuna. That, you know, it's not their fault. They just don't know. They haven't had the opportunity to practice the Dharma. They don't know the 4 Brahma Viharas. They don't know metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. They've not spent any time in a Buddhist monastery where everybody's full of loving kindness all of the time. It really isn't like that all of the time. But it seems that way as a visitor, as it seems to me when I see other monks in other countries. Of course, what's going on in their minds is a whole different thing. But the real practice of metta is external. What you give to others, what you share with others. So as nice as it may be to be able to radiate metta around the world, around the universe, starting here in the temple and moving out or into the village or into the town, into the city, the county, the country, the continent, the planet, the universe, it's all well and good, but I mean, people aren't actually experiencing your loving kindness necessarily. We cannot prove that. It may seem to you that you're developing it within yourself, and you are. That's the point. And that's really what that insinuation in the Karaniya Metta Sutta is implying. You're developing this quality within yourself for all beings. It isn't really, in my interpretation, saying you literally sit and meditate saying those words. So for me, the struggle with metta was developing it in the first place. So I did it back to front by compassion first. And then once I had compassion for anyone or anything, metta just comes along naturally. So without compassion, with a reaction, your first reaction might be to argue back, to defend yourself, to fight back. With an understanding of someone else's lack of understanding, your first reaction is, oh, they don't really know what I'm doing here. They don't know what they're saying. Like in the old phrase, forgive them, they know not what they're doing. This is an attitude of compassion. And you can even, and I've employed in some situations facing aggressors, further advancement on that, in that sutta, the phrase, a mother loves her child, as a mother loves her child, her only child. So the imbuing of unconditional maternal love in yourself, by recognizing that however disturbing the person, the thing, the being is that you're facing, or however disturbed they may be, they have a mother too, whom loves them unconditionally, whatever they do. And knowing that, and that coupled with compassion, you will naturally develop metta towards that being, and then more easily all beings, whether they be deep in the sea or out in the universe or in other realms, wherever, whatever, whomever they may be. So that's my practice. If you want to see what it literally looks like, just watch these videos, subscribe, watch me with cows, and hopefully I don't think I come across anywhere near as pink and fluffy as some monks that you find in Buddhist countries, because they develop a way about them, I think, from a very early age, and I've had to really train myself. But then it is a natural quality that we've learned to develop, and once developed cannot be taken away. Once you fully understand, and reciting the Karaniya Metta Sutta really does help, once you fully understand the principles of this, you cannot then lose that understanding. These are natural qualities and instincts that come about within you in any situation. Metta loving kindness rather than disliking hatred or anger. It's the antidote for ill will, the antidote for aversion. And when you're experiencing something you don't like yourself, you can have use this same antidote, this metta, towards yourself. As it says, we always begin with ourselves and then work outwards, because until we can really appreciate ourselves with compassion and loving kindness, it's very difficult to treat other beings the same way. So I hope that's answered your question. Now I've broken this, another bit of clutter. So I was going to sit down and talk, and I thought, well, I won't need to put the wire covers back on the fan, because often I found in Thailand that the monks, we take them off. We just have these small fans that are electric, because they are a devil to clean, and they need cleaning so often in these humid environments. So I thought, well, I'll just leave it off as it was out in the sun drying anyway, and I'll start my talk. But as soon as I turned the fan on, it kind of took off across the room. So I'm seeing and picking up still little bits of shattered plastic fan. That was the piece I had to replace. You probably didn't need to hear that, but you see, it's all part of life, isn't it? This is all Dharma. I then thought, oh, I have to buy a whole new fan, but it's common in these parts, so Gamini was able to point me in the right direction. Okay. Can you explain the karma imposed by humans' systems imposed on people, the political, social and economic, religious, etc., which make some poor and uneducated and lose mindfulness? So why they should be penalized for this imposed karma? So just understanding that, can I explain the karma imposed by all of these sociological systems and how that would create, I would suggest you're saying there maybe, the poor people that aren't benefiting from education, and why should they be penalized for this imposed karma? So karma is not imposed or collective or coming from the social environment in which you're immersed. You are in the environment in which you're immersed as a result of karma, vipaka. So all you describe there is vipaka, the results of karma, which means actions. Actions specifically of body, speech and mind, which determine your future, so to speak. So where you're at now is determined by your actions of body, speech and mind previously. Quite literally, me having to go into the busy town on an election day, albeit with my helper, fortunately, to source a part for a fan, was purely as a result of my own ignorance, lack of mindfulness. That was vipaka from my own bad karma. That's the immediate kind of example. But we do have a built up bank of karma from previous lives, and rebirth into this life, that comes with us. Which may mean you're born into a wonderful situation or a not so wonderful situation. But what actually is important is not the situation you're in, it is what you do with regards to the creation of new karma here and now in the present moment. So another very frequently chanted reflection is that of we are responsible for our karma, the owners of our karma, the heirs to our karma. And that reflection is reminding us that it is our own actions of body, speech and mind that we're responsible for, that we will reap the rewards or the results from. We'll reap what we sow. So you may be, or see people suffering, I think is what you're saying, as a result of economic conditions or outside influences. This doesn't mean to say that they cannot practice themselves on this path in order to develop good karma, to be able to endure that situation more easily, and in fact also enjoy the life they have. But also make a clear path and direction and momentum for a future better existence within this lifetime, and if rebirth, into the next. So whatever political party is in place, whatever religious organization is dominant wherever you may be, only you can determine your future, and that can only be determined by what you carry out with actions of body, speech and mind in this present moment. We cannot say, this is all other people's fault. Now, it could be seen, I mean, you could be in a very bad situation in a war-torn country and under threat each and every day, your life under threat each and every day. It may be very harsh economic times, difficult to get food. And this is not necessarily directly your fault, but imposed upon you. But whatever's causing that is not imposing upon you how you react, how you deal with that. Neither is the reverse. If you're in a very fortunate situation with every luxury available to you, you could either see that as really overindulging and making the most of it, or two, having equanimity. Now, if you develop equanimity, these 4 Brahma Viharas, in reverse though, but if you develop metta, karuna, mudita and equanimity, I should say them all in the same language, loving kindness, compassion, joy for others and equanimity, then whether you're in a very bad and difficult situation or whether you're in a very good and luxurious situation, it is neither here nor there as far as what your actions are here and now in the present moment of body, speech and mind, and what you do with the time you have. We're just approaching, or have approached, the full moon of November, another Uposatha, a holy day, and at this time, every month, every 15 days on the new moon also, I usually say, reflecting myself on another full moon, another Uposatha, another 15 days has passed, how well have I been spending my time? As the Buddha asked his bhikkhus, how well have you been spending your time? And it is important to reflect on this. So the external situation, the external environment shouldn't be blamed and isn't karma that's imposed upon you. It is others' karma that may affect your external environment of what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, are experiencing, these khandhas, what makes up this persona, what you consider to be a self. And then your thoughts, your consciousness of those, vijnana, the awareness of those, and what you think about that, the feelings towards all of that. Vedana, liking or disliking. But equanimity is a quality we develop whatever is going on, to be unaffected by those external forces and winds. What would you say about the path to letting go of soft furniture? What would you say about the path to letting go of soft furniture and perhaps also luxury items? Thank you for the video today. Well, that brings me back onto my fan. It's a luxury item. And if I didn't have one, I wouldn't have had the suffering it's that it's caused me this morning. So I recognised that the more I had, the more associated suffering went with those things. So I gradually got rid of things, and then momentum picked up, and all of a sudden I was ringing everyone I knew and say, hey, do you want a TV? Come and get this. Do you want a sofa? Come and get this. And they were gladly picking these things up until I was sitting in an empty room on a floor, much like this, but back in my home country. And what would I say about the path to letting go is when you see the freedom and liberation it brings, it is the reason for renunciation, as opposed to letting go. It's more a path of renunciation that you're referring to there. It doesn't take much to let go of soft furnishings. You can give them away or donate them to a shop or something, or throw them away if they're old and horrible. But as soon as they're gone, you know, that feels better. The fan wasn't working this morning, and it wasn't too hot, and there weren't many flies. But I sat and thought, I can't hear the humming of the fan. So that's one good reason not to have a fan. I don't now have to clean the fan. So should I even consider not replacing the fan? But for all intents and purposes and practicality, it does require, you do really have to have something, and it's the least, it's the simplest way of dealing with many issues: flies, heat, dust, humidity. So I drew the conclusion, as nice as it was to think I won't bother fixing the fan now I've broken it, that I ought to. And this is the way you look at it. You see the benefit in not having something. So people go on holiday, and I see at airports when I travel with just my 8 requisites. We have to have with us at all time that sangati, that's third robe. It's a double robe. It's our blanket, really, for sleeping under if it's cold, or using as a wrap if it's cold. I never really get to use it, but on official occasions we have to have it over our shoulder in the temple. But we have to have that with us if we stay anywhere overnight, and as well as that we have our pindapata in order to go and collect food the next day. So that must always be with us at night time also, or within arm's reach wherever we're sleeping, to protect them, because they're one of our 8 requisites. So when I'm travelling, that's all I have: my 3 robes, my bowl, razor, belt, water filter is one of them, and needle and cotton. That's our 8 requisites. That's all we own. When I got down first to just those 8 requisites, and every time I move, so if I move from this kuti to another kuti, even if it's just up the road, that's all I'll take with me. Even the fan that you've kindly donated financially, I know someone will make good use of that fan and probably needs it more than, and I don't know whether I'll need it where I'm going. So I wouldn't take the little plastic stool or the little plastic chair or the fan. The only extra I would take, and this has been, you've seen many times when I've moved with me, is perhaps the phone that I use to make these videos, that you two also have provided, because they're a little bit more expensive to replace and not much use to anybody else because of the way they're set up just for doing this. So that's the only extra, which just goes in my bowl with my passport and my ticket or whatever, boarding pass. And I go to the airport and I see people checking in bags and suitcases and then getting onto the plane. You're only supposed to take a certain amount onto the plane itself, with wheeled suitcases with extendable handles and any possible way to get as much as possible to take with them. And I think, how lucky I am. I don't have to bother with any of that queue to first check all the luggage in, or any of that queue and waiting to then get the luggage back at the end of the process. I just literally walk here, especially as a monk in Buddhist countries, I wait until the last person I am to get off the aeroplane, always the last, because everyone stands for ages before the doors open, and they're all getting all of their bags. And I know they've got to get all through all of the security, and then they've got to go and collect their suitcases. So I'll soon be able to overtake. So I just sit and wait peacefully, calmly, until the plane is empty. Then I get up, I get off the plane, walk straight through security, out of the airport, and think, I'm so glad I've just got my bowl and those 7 other things, because I'm wearing 3 of the things, carrying my bowl, and in that bowl is everything else I own in the world. This is the path to letting go of soft furnishings. You can't take your sofa or your bed with you. Another thing with beds, soft furnishings, I was so amazed. I was living at the time in a very small flat, a studio flat, no bigger really much than this room. And it had a double bed in it, which I bought and put in it. It was a nice new double bed when I first moved in there. And then it took up most of the room. To walk around it, this was it. Okay, you could sit on it, but then I also had a sofa which took up the other corner. So a very narrow space to get from the bathroom to the kitchen area. And when I got rid of the bed and got rid of the sofa, there was so much space. I could even practice walking meditation, albeit from one corner to the other, because that's the longest stretch. Amazing again, how liberating. But more importantly, I've never had to find anywhere specific to sleep necessarily. In most airports, it's a little bit more difficult. It doesn't work in India because you can't really sleep in Indian airports, but because they're too busy and packed, and I don't think they like it much. But other than that, when I go anywhere else, I've had to get there early, the night before perhaps, rather than having to check into a hotel. I just go into the airport as far as you're allowed before the check-in, and I find a corner under a stairs, lay on the floor and go to sleep. This is liberation. This is the benefit of not having a lovely big comfortable bed and the space that you create around the room. It then doesn't need cleaning. I never have to wash my bedding. It's not because I'm unclean. I'm wearing it now. I sleep in this robe. I wrap it around me like a sleeping bag. And then this gets washed more often than we're really supposed to wash it. We're only really supposed to wash it the day before Uposatha. In the tradition I was trained in anyway. I don't think it's a Vinaya rule. So I wash it a bit more often than that whenever it needs it. If it gets smelly, it goes in a bucket of water, a little bit of detergent, quick rinse, hung up to dry with the fan, because otherwise it wouldn't dry in the humidity. And again, how liberating. No trying to get that, what is it called, a quilt, a duvet, into its case. I mean, I'm actually very good at that. I got very expert at that. But no necessity, no shaking into the corners, none of this. No pillows to wash or get especially clean, no mattresses to think of. Think of all what collects in mattresses over the years, people sweating into them, the pounds of flesh and skin that absorb into those spaces, into those hotel mattresses. Maybe some of them are covered in plastic, but perhaps not so many. These days, people prefer to not sleep on plastic sheeting. I think I would prefer to sleep on the floor. You know, there's many people's skin, pounds of it, sweat and tears and other things in these mattresses, in these pillows. This is soft furnishing, and you're asking me, what can I say about the path of letting that go? I think, take it away. I don't want it. Thank you very much. I said goodbye to it a long time ago. I love this concrete floor. A little bit dusty, but in this country, never cold. It's just right. And this is a thin piece of cloth that we use to sit on out of respect for our robes. And I lay on this grass mat. It's not soft, but it's to protect these robes that I'm wrapping around me to sleep at night. And my head just rests on that sangati, which I usually put my anksa, that vest thing we wear under here, or instead of this, over that to stop my head, sweating on the sangati, because that's difficult to clean. So soft furnishings, no thank you. You'll find, get rid of one item and you'll soon be getting rid of the rest. This is an old chestnut, so I'll deal with it quickly. I want to see what the time is. So probably this is the last one. Caffeine in green tea. Caffeine in green tea. Would you consider it as an intoxicant, as defined in the Dharma? I'm guessing technically yes, blah, blah, blah. And then it's about, it's good for medicine. No, tea's fine. Caffeine is fine. Even, dare I say it, and here's the comments will come thick and fast, nicotine is not fine, it's bad for you. And probably caffeine is bad for you. They're not intoxicants, they're stimulants. Stimulants are allowables even. For monks in the afternoon, we're allowed a cup of tea. Monks are allowed to smoke cigarettes or chew tobacco, or betel nut is common here. There's nothing in the Vinaya, the rules. Of course it's bad for your health, terrible consequences. I used to smoke very heavily and gave up many years ago and would never consider it again. But I still drink coffee. It keeps me going in the afternoon. And I enjoy coffee. I'm living in a country that produces the most beautiful coffee, and they don't drink much of it here. But the most beautiful tea and the most beautiful coffee in the world. I'm not sure about their coffee, but the tea is mostly exported. The coffee, mostly they like to have, or maybe they think because I'm from the West, I like to have Nescafe and such like. But I mean, Nescafe, why would you have it when you've got beautiful, fresh, roasted Sri Lankan coffee, ground, that is relatively inexpensive, but very, very delicious. It's very similar to Vietnamese coffee, very chocolatey. So just black coffee, no sugar, but very high in caffeine content. Caffeine is not an intoxicant. Intoxicants are things that dull the mind. So in a way, sedatives like alcohol or marijuana, or other whatever drugs, I couldn't list them all, I don't know, but they are specifically intoxicants. They lead to heedlessness as opposed to alertness and mindfulness. So not too much coffee, but coffee's fine. Green tea for your medicinal purposes or any purposes, just because it's nice, is fine. You'll see many monks drinking tea in the afternoon. One more, because I'm enjoying this. So I've been practicing the Noble Eightfold Path intensely lately. Good, good, good. Meditating a lot. Good, good, good. Anumodana sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I see myself moving towards trying out all 10 precepts. Would it be okay to do it so by living in the forest or in a non-Buddhist country? Sorry, living in the forest in a non-Buddhist country. I must point out that if I were to do it, I would be living in a forest near lay people, depending on their generosity. Or would you recommend to go into training in a monastery? Well, if you can do that, then why not try it? It'll give you a taste for monastic life, if nothing else. The 10th precept is no using money, we translate it as. It's really literally translated as we mustn't handle gold or silver. Precious metals, which were probably used as money in the time of the Buddha. So we don't use money as monks. We shouldn't, because we are considered to having taken the 10th precept. In fact, monks don't usually take the 10 precepts. We go straight to 227. But you can live in the monastery as an anagarika, and it varies in different countries, different places, whether you are straight into being a samanera, where you have 75 precepts, or you start as an anagarika with 10 precepts, which is the 8 precepts, plus one of them divides into 2. Perfume and entertainment divides into 2. So really the 8 precepts is 9 precepts, because amalgamated are the use of are using adornments such as jewelry, perfume, makeup, and it's combined with entertainment, watching movies and listening to music. And then in the 10 precepts, that splits into 2, making 9, and then the 10th is not using money. And look, if you can get away with not using money in a non-Buddhist country, then power to you, go for it. I think it's a little bit difficult though. When I was doing that, I did the same as you. I went and lived out and about in a van on the beaches and in forests and things. I still had to use a little bit of money, albeit not very much at all. I mean, just to get from A to B costs money in most places. People aren't just going to take you. But if people want to support you as a project, that's okay. But they might question as to why Why should they? Why don't you go and get a job, might be their question, and support yourself. So when you are ordained as a monk, it is well known, even in non-Buddhist countries, you are a samana, a renunciant. You've given up a lot more than is covered in the 10 precepts in order that you can live the religious, the holy life, the brahmacharya life, the celibate life. And they know that they need to support you, albeit it doesn't take much to support a monk. The occasional part for a fan, which is very inexpensive in these parts. So with all this in mind, if you can do it, give it a go. You say, or would I recommend training in a monastery? In a monastery, they're not going to necessarily train you in how to do that. That's more bushcraft skills. That's survival that you're going to need to know about in order to do what you're planning to do. But it's nothing wrong if you're allowed to do it where you live. I don't know where you live, you don't say. But say you live in, I don't know, Canada or somewhere like that with acres and, or, I don't know, millions of forests. And I'm thinking of old Grizzly Adams there, you know, the man with the bear, and he had the beard, and he lived in the wilderness of some North American remote part. He was based a TV character based on a real person who I admired very much as a child for his whole life, because he was on the run for a murder he didn't commit or something like that, it said in the opening scenes. Very nice theme tune, I think, went along with this particular program. Grizzly Adams, the bear and the man and the bear. Possibly something that inspired me to this life in the first place as a child, maybe. But yes, if you can do that, then do it. Ajahn Sona, a well-known Theravada Buddhist monk, he started off living like this in the forest as a lay person, but practicing. Myself, my own practice started like this too. And then there's another book, Walden, which is based on the life of Thoreau. And he, well, a part of his life, a small part of his life. He's a philosopher, an author, a writer, an intellectual, back in the 1930s, whom experimentally tried such a thing. You might want to read that book, look it up, Walden by Thoreau. Apparently it's quite a tough read, but I enjoyed it very much and was very inspirational to my practice. He explores a lot of Buddhism within it, and other philosophies also. So you might want to look at that. If the next question's a short one, I'm going to go for it, but it's not. And I think I'm probably out of time. I thought I looked at the time when I began. I can't believe that amount of time has gone by so quickly. Thank you for watching. I hope there's something useful there, and if there is, then please use it, and please share it with others, and subscribe if you haven't. Ask others to subscribe, and keep viewing all of these things that I don't say, but the more people that listen to the Dharma, the more people, I hope, will get another perspective on their own lives and little things they can do to change their own lives that don't cost anything, don't require much by way of sacrifice, just a very little bit of time occasionally spent in meditation and spent observing one's behaviour with their interactions with other people, our actions of body, speech and mind, our development of those qualities of metta, loving kindness, of karuna, compassion, of mudita, joy for others. And then ultimately this practice is about developing upekkha, equanimity, in order to be able to deal with all of those situations that life throws at us, from war-torn countries, invasions, from plagues and pandemics, famine and hardship, to the simple little domestic disasters such as breaking your fan or something like that, or having a bit of a headache or a toothache. All of these things are here and are the Dharma, are the phenomena we experience in this life. And if we're practicing the four foundations of mindfulness, that the mindfulness of the Dharma is the mindfulness of all that's going on, and something we should be continuously paying attention to in respect of our reactions to it. And this is how we develop that all-important, so important equanimity towards those worldly winds that we face. So on that note, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.